Okay, welcome back everyone, and thanks for showing up after lunch. We are here on the lecture hall stage on the second day of the HPI Design Thinking Impact Conference and entering the second half of the day. So there is a lot more to come. We have our next panel lined up, which has the title Value-Based Systems Design and the Need for Collaboration. We all hope that you had a great lunch and that you are not falling asleep in the next few minutes because we have again a very exquisite lineup of speakers. In this panel, we will see and delve into the discourse about impact of digital technologies and artificial intelligence. One of the questions is, which societal and policy guidelines do we need in order to for such systems to remain human-centric? Or, and this question has already popped up this morning, which ethics do we also need to develop? The panel is hosted by Professor Ulrich Weinberg, founder and director of the HPI School of Design Thinking, and joining the conversation are three panelists. We have Fung, the chair of and co-founder of People-Centered Internet. Focus of her work is to enable resilient communities with digital assets using data that connects and lets the members of the community thrive. We have Monika Frech. She is currently the managing director at Yunus Social Business. With her team, she supports organizations on their path to purposeful business. She's also a co-founder of the innovation transformation consultancy Dark Horse, has graduated in the second ever cohort of the HPI D-School back in 2009, and in my time co-leading the design thinking programs here at the D-School, I also had the pleasure to work with her as a coach, and I think I can also say that she has definitely been a mentor and advisor to me in some other instances as well in the past. So great to have you here. And then we have Dr. Konstantinos. He is the managing director of Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Standards Association. He is a global advocate for the awareness that socio-technical aspects should be explicitly considered in the design of AI systems and in standards settings. So also very much looking forward to see perspectives on the political realm in all of this. So please, quick round of applause. Welcome everyone on stage. And Uli, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Christian, for introducing us. And yeah, I'm really happy that we got this panel together live, because you're both of you are just coming from Saudi Arabia. And both of you had trouble with your luggage, and you are fighting to get your suitcase back. But since we are, and this is a welcome also to our virtual digital participants here, the online participants, since we are a hybrid event, we would have had the chance to get in touch with you on the airport at the place where you have your luggage and get you in the communication process here. And I'm really happy to have that special panel here also with the alumni, with a dear alumni of the D-School. And let me start with an impolite first question to our man, and that is because we had a woman talking in the morning, and I think all three of you were not witnessing the SAP keynote about artificial intelligence. And who of you was at that session? I think all of you, because it was a plenary session, so that's for sure. I thought it was very interesting for me. On one hand, actually, it looked like we had prepared this kind of very close relationship between AI and design thinking, but I was actually surprised how close Fei Shu was really framing that and saying, yes, if we want to do successful AI projects and high-tech projects, there is no way around design thinking. And then she was also pointing on their 7 internal principles they developed in order to foster ethical-based design and bring that to the people who are really doing it, the developers. And that brings me to Konstantinos, because I know him since some years. Actually, I think, Malin, you brought us together. You bring so many people together. We talk about that later. But and you are fighting for something which is more general, the general approach. Actually, if you remember the 7 principles SAP was looking at, what Konstantinos and IEEE and especially the standardization organization, which is headed by Konstantinos, what they are working on is, since more than 5 years or 6 years or so, is to find to define a standard which can be used internationally. Not just one company can use that, but actually all companies who are dealing with software development in that regard are able to use. And I would like to ask you, because I'm pretty sure that for me that was a new topic some time ago, and I'm pretty sure that for most of you here that will also be a new topic. So please, Konstantinos, could you explain us a little bit, could you give us a little bit, shed some light on what was done through the past 5 years, and why is it so important from your perspective as an IEEE board member?
Thank you, Uli. So I can easily answer your question, and I will do it. And then I hope we will have a little time that I give you an example which is really very hot in the news right now. It is California has passed a law, and it is very interesting, the name of the law. It is called California Age-Appropriate Design Code. And it is a copy of the UK Age-Appropriate Design Code. What does it mean? Why it is a historic achievement, and what is coming, what has been our role there, and why it has very much to do with design. And it incorporates everything we're talking about. This is the example, socio-political example. But I will put it to the back, and I hope we will find a little time, because we must also understand what we're talking about here and what is so important to us. It is about our children, their mental health we're talking about. There is nothing more important than this, in my opinion. So we started around, as you said, perhaps 7 years ago, and the ambition was, as you said, Uli, to get the techno-scientific communities to assume their share of responsibility for the design of the systems they are producing, which are socio-technical systems, not purely technical. If you do a hammer, then it is a hammer. You can use it to fix a nail or to kill somebody. There's nothing you can do. But this metaphor does not work anymore for the internet platforms. They are designed from the beginning to make our children addictive. So there is nothing innocent there. This is a crime against humanity. And it is perpetuated. So somebody has to stop them. How? And for this reason, we engaged and tried to create some values and principles which can help our peers to do a better work from the beginning. When we design a large-scale system, that is not just about profit or about functionality, that we think about the collateral and contextual aspects as engineers and system makers. And this was not easy. I was told, what are you doing there? We have never done this before. Are you crazy? Everything is fine, and this is not our business, and so on. Fortunately, and is this recorded now? This is going to be shown to the world, what I'm saying here?
Yeah, not now, to a closed circle
okay.
of participants.
Okay. I mean, I have said this several times publicly, but I'm not comfortable if it is recorded what I'm saying. But now I'm doing an exception because I trust you, Uli. So we did it because I had the power to do it. I had the budget. I could have people work clandestine, really, to do this for years and to support them. and to come out, and then they could not be stopped. So what we did, we created the desire for this. I mean that the fact that we're discussing this today is because 7 years ago, we started with this. And I'm not exaggerating. We created this space of desire. The desire to give to systems a value and to go after the values, to integrate into the design the values. There were people like, of course, Sarah and Wendell Wallach, who were writing books, but they were academics sitting in the corner, they had no influence. We brought them to the fourth stage, and we made them standard makers, these people. Sarah Spiekerman came to us and launched the first standard about value-based design. And so we made an alliance there between enlightened academics and the technical people who understood something needs to be done. And then we did another step, which was very important. We allied ourselves with enlightened policymakers who wanted really to do something. And we became their trusted advisors. And we helped them to understand the value of standards and how standards can complement regulation and legislation. So this was a very complex strategic, let's say, approach. And they all worked together in the passing of these laws, I tell you, in California and the UK. And it is possible, but this is a confluence of personalities and history. And so the good news is it can be done. We must not really shrug with the shoulders and say there is nothing we can do. This is the world, take it or leave it. No, we can do it, but we have to ally ourselves. And we have to do our job as engineers, and we are doing it. And I'm finishing here to give also the ladies here the chance to say something. We have been creating standards, where standards are instructions to ourselves to do a better design work. This is our standards. And secondly, we have been creating certification schemes and specifications to check the quality of existing systems with respect to a series of very interesting criteria like transparency, reduction of bias, accountability, respect of our privacy. These are really cutting edge. And they are very robust and vast systems of quality assurance we have created within 6 years. So you are right, we have been doing our job, Uli. Yeah. This is the reason why I'm here.
Yeah, and that is, yeah, thank you very much. Maybe you add a little portion before we start talking also with Melin and Monika about the current state of the 7000 standard, how it's called, because you're talking about something, yes, that was developed through 7 years now, and we learned in the morning, yes, there are internal principles at SAP and other companies as well, and there is the EU AI Act to be made, but it's not really there. So it's not that we say you can go to that website and there you find everything, and that is state of the art. This is how you should do things, and maybe give us, since you are very close by.
In 1 minute.
Yeah.
So one of our flagship products, or let's say creations, is the series of the 7000 standards. The first, the 7000 itself, is a model method of how to incorporate ethical values into system design. And this is the reason we are here together with Uli, because we want to work together to make this part of the design methodology. This is a process very well described, how to do it and so on. And Sarah Spiekerman really initiated this, and then there were a group of 100 people who came together and worked for several years. It was very contested, this project, because it is not technical only. It is also philosophical, sociological, ethical, so there was a huge fight among the community about every word and every term, but we got it. It is there. It is approved since September. Now we created a conformity assessment suite also for this, that the people can show we follow this standard. There is a huge interest by the European Union, by other organizations. ISO wants to adopt it. We gave it to them so they can also adopt it and perhaps build on it and so on. It took years for them to understand the need to do so, but now they're waking up. And so this will have an influence. This is the first standard when you can build a system based on values. And we got it. And we are very proud of it. And there have been the best people in the world have worked on this.
Yeah,
you know
thanks.
this.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. And I would like to introduce now Mei Fung into the game, because you are a chair at IEEE. I see social impact measurement. Is that right? There's one of your lots of activities actually, and you are the chair and co-founder of People-Centered Internet, and this you did together with Windsurf. Windsurf is a famous person. He was the guy introducing the TCP/IP protocol lots of years ago. So he's somehow a tech guy, and that is my question to you. And you brought us together with the Global Design Thinking Alliance with the IEEE standard. So what drives you, and how do you frame that from a non-tech perspective?
First, I want to.
Does that work?
This is working? Okay, great. I want to say my first job was as an assembler programmer. So implicit bias that a woman is not tech. My first job was doing assembler programming. And therefore, I actually bring a deep technical understanding to the implications of technology, because the tech just does what you tell it to. And then we have to think about who is telling the tech what to do. And when you have coding teams who are all white males coding for diverse groups, then naturally there is a bias and lack of attention to being having participation by all people. And I noticed this certainly as a woman, where in my tech career, I was at Intel and Oracle. I very often was the only woman in the room. And I come to the idea of value-based system design because I'm the godmother of CRM, customer relationship management. That's now a $40 billion software industry. But the two people that actually started it was Kevin Kramer and myself, and it was a man and a woman, and somebody who was white and somebody who was Asian. And so the diversity of that beginning, I think, really provided the opportunity for CRM to actually grow much greater. Meanwhile, as CRM grew, I saw so many problems. This is how devastating it felt to me. I felt like I was the mother of a serial killer. That's how it felt. Because how could the software that I had thought would help to improve the relationship between business and customers end up being used in the scandals of the decades? WorldCom, Enron, Wells Fargo, all of this use software that if I hadn't worked on it in 1989, it would not have existed. So I really felt, as somebody who had seen the cycle, and it's all 30 years now, that there are things you can do, but it's too much to expect that the designer can anticipate all the ways that something would be used. It's like fire. Fire has great stuff, but it also can burn everything up. And so it is about how we put our guardrails, our cultural institutions, our social norms around this that is critical. So for me, the idea of value-based system design is that we have to tie what we do with artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, down to, does it benefit people? And I actually am so delighted to say that in Saudi Arabia, they made the Riyadh AI Declaration, where 11 countries agreed that artificial intelligence has to benefit people, nations, and the world. And then I made an intervention, which is that we should add in communities. In science, when we begin to do science, we learn through measurement. It was by measuring things that science has allowed us to collaborate. We make hypotheses, we see what ties to the Newtonian hypothesis, and then, quantum comes along, it grows. We are at a vast frontier of digital, and we have to think about what is the scientific labs that we need for digital technologies. And my assertion, and I made this at Riyadh also, is that we need community living learning labs. We now have the capacity to measure things, Internet of Things, digital footprints, nanosecond level tracking, but we're not using that. Instead, we say, oh, we think the ratio of teachers to students should be X. We can test this properly. We can actually look at it day by day, month by month, year by year, and see what the outcomes are. But we're not using our technology to track those things, because the ways industrial companies have emerged, it's all about selling to a customer. So what I say is that if we want to do value-based system design, we must be clear. Who is this supposed to benefit? Over.
Thank you.
What we are measuring.
And what we are measuring, yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Melin. I had a question, but I have some questions for you.
Answer the question.
You ask it. Yeah. I asked you the question, but I think that is a question I would love from you also. Why you thought that? Oh no, let me frame it the way. We had the pleasure to have Melin at the last semester, which was a hybrid semester at the D-School, as one of part of the coaching team in a special role. And you were actually choosing our most crazy room as your office, our prop space, you know that probably, where all the wigs and all the prototyping material is, and there's a table, Peter, you have seen that. And that was your office during that time. So, but you were talking about those labs. Yeah. You were saying we need certain kind of labs. What is what you were missing at the D-School while you were there in order to meet your vision of this kind of lab?
What was missing?
It was missing here.
Yeah.
Because we will constantly further develop, because I've had the feeling we're moving in that direction.
You are moving in that direction.
Is something missing? What is missing?
I think that the Digital Cooperation Organization, these 11 countries that have signed the Riyadh AI Declaration, are going to actually do community living learning labs. They approached me right after I spoke, and they said they wanted to follow up. Babelsberg is a tremendous opportunity for Germany and for Europe about the media tech future. Babelsberg should be a community living learning lab with academia, with business, with industry, with mothers and fathers and children going to school. And that can be a sensor-driven lab to understand what is the effect of new social media approaches. What is the effect of having people learn everything on YouTube? We are not looking at that in a systematic way. And so the EU has committed large amounts of research funding. That research funding should be actually applied to the things that the EU considers the most important, which is how ordinary people can live well and bring up their children and have good jobs. So that's the kind of lab that we need.
I see. So that means from our perspective, we should really expand. We should open the doors way more open. And I'm really happy that Melin, that you are also part of the Media Tech Hub conference. I was happy to see that. I was not aware, but you're so busy. So in a few weeks from now, you will speak there, and you speak probably about this kind of ecosystem, the Babelsberg lab. Yeah, thanks, great. Monika, I have tons of questions, and one of my first questions for sure would have been regarding the Dark Horse startup, because what they did, it was, for me, it was a mind-blowing experience and a mind-blowing enterprise, because there was, at that time we had 40 students at the D-School. It was the second year, and we completely underestimated the bonding effect of the design thinking mode. And all of the 40 students, they didn't know each other. Absolutely not. They didn't know each other. There was no friend. There was no study colleagues. They were all completely mixed up. And then after 1 year, 30 of the 40 students decided to start a company, one company. I was thinking, if you start 3 companies with 30 people, it might be working, but even 10 as a startup is way too many. And we're talking here about system design, value-based, and the need for collaboration, you know, and I think maybe that part of the story also fits because now it's 14 years old, and I had my traditional view on a startup is 3 or 4 people, you know, and they have a tech idea or they have an interesting idea, and then they get money and they do something. And for me, it was completely impossible to start with 30 people, because the structure which you have to generate then departments or whatever, that kills you immediately. And so I was in our first talks, I was saying that will not work, you know, that will you'll be done in 3 months. And I was completely wrong, because their mode, they were showing actually, and there's Sascha Wolf also, he's also one of the founders. Is there another founder, co-founder here? They proved me that there is, at the design thinking mode, they learned here, and they kind of became their DNA, part of the DNA. There is so bonding that this company is still there. It was growing. It was doing a lot of business. Sometimes we felt it is a competitor to what HPI Academy is doing, and but we still stayed good friends. So, but tell us a little bit about that system you created, and about that first step, which then made you do other steps you can talk about later.
Sure. So maybe to contextualize that a little bit, as you said, we were the second batch here, so 2008, 2009. And back then, design thinking was not as it is right now. So in technical terms, it was. So the elements were very much there. But right now, all of you have heard about it. Most of you have probably in-depth experience with it. Back then, not so much. So the 40 of us, plus the few coaches and the team at the D-School, were more or less the only people within the German context, at least, who knew, at least after a while, what design thinking was. So after having experienced that and having the privilege to be at the D-School for 1 full year, it was a full year back then, it wasn't initially our plan to start a company, but we wanted to keep doing design thinking. We really experienced the value of that, and we were babies, we were young back then, out of university. And I myself, I went to a big automotive company and thought, okay, I'm an alumni now. I'm going to start my first job and bring this great design thinking idea into this giant automotive company. Well, didn't work. Design thinking, it was very much esoteric at the time, and it was like, no design, we have an agency for that. We don't need that. You just do your job. And I was very frustrated by that because I had experienced the power of it, and then not being able to apply that. And of course, there was also a lot of like youthful arrogance and naivete, like a combination of those two. And some other co-founders had similar experiences in similar contexts. And we stayed together as a group of friends. And then we figured, okay, if nobody wants to employ us with those new skills that we value so much, let's just do it ourselves. But of course, none of us had experience with real work since this was our first job. And none of us was in the position to sort of be the boss. I wanted to be the boss, as an example. Like who would have done that out of a cohort of 40 alumni? So we sort of built a system based on the values of design thinking, like interdisciplinarity, like iteration, an entrepreneurial spirit, empathy. That is very much part of the DNA of Dark Horse, what we learned as the important elements. And we built that into the company, into the system of how Dark Horse as a company works. Nowadays, lots of that is called new work. We sort of discovered that after a few years. There's a word for how we do, or people put that label on that. That's not how we set out to do it. But then, of course, we also used it as a label to be attached to Dark Horse. But that was sort of the way that developed. So we didn't set out to invent a new way of working. We did it out of sheer necessity because we really wanted to keep working with design thinking as a group, as a company, and that's for us was the way to do it, and still is.
Still is, yeah. That was would have been my next question, and maybe staying with you. So and you did then. You're still connected to that.
Yes.
Kind of. What is it? So you call it a company, or what is it? Is it your home base, or what is it? How you call it? How you call the place which made you write the book? Thank God it's Monday.
Yeah, we called it the German word Kommerzkommune. So the book is in German. So it's a mixture between a business, but a very like collaborative based business, maybe in the spirit of what you just mentioned. So it goes beyond just being together to make a profit and then get a share out of that profit. But we also learned in the process of we learned a lot about boundaries as well. So we started as this very tight-knit group of friends, and we are still friends, and we still have that. But we also learned a lot about those, a lot of companies say, hey, we are family, and you join us and you'll be part of a family. And there's also, or there at least used to be the D-School family. And then as more and more of us got, biological families, so we learned that, okay, there actually is a difference. And nowadays, personally, I'm a bit more critical of that because it can imply like a sense of loyalty and a sense of pressure, even a sense of like belonging or enforcement of belonging. That's not always healthy. So we learned a lot about that as well. And I think that sort of aspect of we are here to do purposeful work together, but we are also human beings outside of that work context, and that actually helps us again to do that work together. That was something that we also had to, that was at least for me personally, a learning journey in that.
Okay. Thank you. And now you are the managing director at the Yunus social business in Germany, and I think you're in the position since a year now. So
yeah, around a year.
How did what you were kind of learning or experiencing at the D-School and then transferring and transforming also in your Dark Horse organization, how did that how does that resonate now with the organization, or is it something which as far as I know, it's not a large organization, it's not an automotive company, not
no.
like 50,000 people company, it's a small one. How does that resonate with the Yunus social business? I guess there is a lot of resonance already.
Yeah, so the central idea of social business is to use business as a tool, as a way to solve a social challenge, a social problem, but you really start with the empathy or with the connection to the problem, and then you use business as a vehicle towards solving that. So maybe one example, one of our portfolio companies in Colombia, they have an app, and it's sort of like Uber in a way, but for lumpers. Those are people who unload trucks, who unload fruits and stuff that's been delivered to supermarkets. And they're at the bottom of the pyramid. So the way that it worked traditionally is that they just sit literally at the curb at the street and like, I'm available for work. Please pick me to unload your truck. And then the truck drivers get paid by the supermarket. And I mean, you can imagine how much money those people then get in the end for sitting at the curbside basically all day long. So now there's an app for that. In that case, it really is a technical solution that connects those lumpers directly to the supermarket. They can stay at home with their families, or they don't have to sit literally on the street and can then go to the supermarket whenever a truck arrives. So in essence, like a very simple solution, but it uses tech to solve the social problem. And that's the idea of social business. Yesterday, you probably all read the news about the billionaire founder of Patagonia, sort of giving away his fortune, or using Patagonia not for profit and for shareholders anymore, but for the planet and for purpose. That is what we call social business. That's the idea of Professor Yunus. And he got a Nobel Peace Prize, so I guess some other people recognize that as a good idea as well. To bring those two worlds together and to use the efficiency, the innovation power, the ingeniousness of entrepreneurship to solve those social problems instead of only relying on philanthropic money or on political power or on systems like that. How to use that power, not for profit, but for purpose, for solving problems. And that is very much also my personal connection to what I learned here at the D-School. Start with empathy, look at the real problem, but also consider the boundaries that you have. Work cross-disciplinary, look beyond the boundaries of your own expertise, bring together the people, create a network. Like, don't think you can do it, or you don't have to do it alone, but don't assume that you can, and that entrepreneurial aspect of prototyping it, iteration. So that's very much what many of those social entrepreneurs, that's their DNA, and that's also how developed Dark Horse as a company. And now bringing that together, that impact aspect is just something that I enjoy.
When you listen to what Konstantinos was talking about, what he was working on with a group of people for 7 years to bring a standard, do you see any value for your activities? Would you say, oh, why we have a startup here, and knowing that I could point them towards that direction?
Yeah, that is super helpful and super important, because for many of those startups, it's very much an uphill battle. I mean, being a startup without the impact focus is hard enough as it is. Being a startup that's not there for profit only, but that has as its main purpose to solve a social challenge, that's a whole different story. And what we also do as Yunus Social Business is we work with big corporations and try to help them to make their business more purposeful via social business. So incorporating them into their value chain, for example, or we do venture building with them, do accelerators for social businesses. And for a long time, this used to be like a one-way street, the big ones supporting the small ones. We now see that it's actually a virtuous circle, and that social startups can be great influencers for big corporations. However, it's the two cultural worlds meet there, and there are a lot of clashes and a lot of misunderstandings. So sort of those standards can really, really help, of course, the big players, but also the ones who try to sort of work with them and to have that hinge, or to have that link and that accountability there. And like, hey, yeah, that's exactly what we do. That's part of our mission. That's part of our company anyways. And you trying to achieve that, for example, working towards those standards, let us show you how we've done it in the past years as a social startup. So that is completely necessary and super helpful.
Thank you, thank you. Since I think we have to finish in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes. Is that right? Because the next, because the next thing is starting at 3. So but I would love to involve all of you with questions or remarks. I see interesting people sitting here around with some of you I know. And also, I encourage also our friends online, if there is a question already. I don't see a raised hand here. There is one, Leon Reiner.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Thanks for that really interesting panel and also the examples that you gave. The panel is called Value-Based System Design and the Need for Collaboration. I found it really interesting to hear from the IEEE perspective the thinking of, wow, this is so controversial, we actually need to do it clandestine. Where I often think about, when I think about value-based system design, I often think collaboration is actually a necessary means to a good outcome. So I wonder how you guys see that contradiction, because I do also see, the point that sometimes it just needs to be under the rug for a while. So how's your maybe experience at IEEE, and then maybe also other experiences from your time about systems design? At what point of time is it important to keep it a bit under the rug still? And at what point of time does this point of collaboration come in and becomes a necessary pathway to success? Thank you.
So this is a misunderstanding. Keeping them clandestine was not to seal the competition outside. It was the contrary. I was trying to win over the competition. I went personally to the headquarters of other organizations, trying to convince them to move. They were laughing at me. What are you talking about? This is not technical. This is political, ethical, but this is not technical. We are technical guys. The same goes within my organization. So I had to seal themselves from my own organization, not from the outsiders. And because what is here at stake, it is a very convenient positioning of ourselves that we are good people doing always good work. Others are screwing it up. It is not us. And this is not tenable anymore, because the people who create the algorithms that make our children addictive, nobody tells them to do it so. They do it themselves. Not even their bosses tell them to do so. They are very responsible for what they're doing. The technical people, not even the capitalists. So we have a huge responsibility. And we have to start assuming it. And this is the interesting thing within, with these emerging technologies like so-called artificial intelligence, that the bosses don't understand anymore what you are doing. It is very cryptic to them. So that means there is a space of freedom. Command and control, management does not work there anymore. So collaboration is possible among the peers. And with the next level of the hierarchy. And if the people agree there to use this freedom for good, then a lot of problems would not be there. But they're not doing it. They're doing it for bad, mostly. So, and this is where we come in with the standards to say, people, you can do it better, and here's how. There is no excuse anymore. Time of innocence is over. Done. Assume your responsibility. From now on, the political class is going to intervene. And they are doing it now. They're doing it in the United Kingdom, they're doing it in California, and very soon they're going to do it in the entire EU. And the big names of tech have been against this, unfortunately. But the time is getting over. I'm sorry. This is what it is. And people in my organization are asking me, why are you doing this? You are pissing off our clients and customers. Really. I heard this 3 days ago. So this is what I'm talking about. This is why I don't want this to be public. So, but this is a fact, what we are fighting against. So it is vested interest, it is an ideology of complacency and so on. And we have to find allies and to fight this fight to the end. So, and yeah, at the moment, there are some very tangible wins. Just read the news about California, what happened there. And the latest news is that this law is in the hands of the government governor to be signed. He can, theoretically, he could have exerted a veto. And if you are interested in what happened, you can ask me afterwards. I cannot say this publicly.
Let me jump in.
Yeah,
You know, the legislation against monopolies happened because there was egregious exploitation of monopoly power. This happened 80 years ago. Today we are seeing whistleblowers from Twitter, from Facebook, a whole realm of things happening with Google, with them closing down some of their responsible AI team. So while there is general social understanding that companies should contribute to a better world, they are bound by their business models to continue to show a profit. And if they can't show a profit, they will disappear. And therefore, anyone who brings up issues like this is told, shut up or you'll get fired. And that is the situation in Silicon Valley, which is why the whistleblowing is happening and more will happen until there is, in fact, legislation or regulation. We're in a fight for humanity. The addictive behaviors that are necessary to maintain the profitability of the major advertising tech companies, they can't solve it. It's like their own cancer. They can't solve it on their own. They simply can't. So we might know what the right thing is to do. We might know that we should have a circular economy. We might know all of this stuff, that we shouldn't have people starving. But the change that's needed is a political campaign, a strategy, a roadmap. And technology is a key part of that. And what is the role of engineers? I really second what Konstantinos is saying, which is you can no longer say, well, I just do what I was told. Remember, this happened here in Germany. So we have to understand where our limits are, our responsibility as human beings. And just because the system cannot help itself, we have to change it.
Yeah, I think
Monika?
I think what you said before is also very central. In order to design a value-based system, you have to know the values first. You have to sort of know what you're designing towards. And within the current system, all of us have it very easy to not think about that. And big tech, of course, is contributing to that. It's easier to not think about that, but it's becoming increasingly harder. I mean, at least here in Europe, we've all experienced this past summer. And I totally agree, there's no such thing as a neutral position anymore. Climate change is going to affect all of us. It's already affecting all of us, so there's no way around it. And the way that the current system is built incentivizes sort of the complacency. But that also brings me back to sort of my criticism, I guess, of also the family metaphor that I used for very long, because we see in the space that I'm in, we see a lot of activist burnout because individuals are up against the system, and that is just, it's tough. It's not something, changing the system as a single person or with a small organization, it's going to burn you out, at least in the long run. So I totally agree that while we need all that, the business power and coming together from small players, coming together with established companies, thinking about, okay, what can we do differently, we also need, and that's where the need for collaboration is very central, the political framework for that, and like the incentives need to change. And if I learned one thing at the School of Design Thinking at the HPI here is that things can be different, and we can work towards that change. That is really one central learning that I have from my time here. But it's not always easy. I also learned that.
Konstantinos.
I can, yeah, you are right. And just 2 words, how we did it. I mean, we allied ourselves with policymakers who were attacked by technical experts, telling them you have no idea what you're talking about. This cannot be done. We cannot code for it. Forget it. It is not possible to distinguish children from others. We have an open democratic internet, and take it or leave it. And so they were treating our children from their data treatment as adults, making them addictive. And this is illegal. And they were getting away with it, with some fines and so on, but it was a flourishing business model. So what we did, we became their trusted technical advisors. And we showed that what you are doing is feasible. It is just disturbing business models. So they got unanimously the law in California and the United Kingdom, unanimously. And then they got the code, which is a regulation, which is 100 pages, which was very detailed. And there again, the big tech fought against with everything they had. And we, invisibly, were really fighting against them. And this is a big fight. And this has a lot of risks, but we did it. And we won. And it is not just passing the regulation legislation. The legislators came to us and started building standards that are necessary to implement the regulation. We have never had this before, having legislators from the House of the Lords working with us to make technical standards, to make the regulation work. This is the level of collaboration we have done. And we invested millions there for this, many millions, under the table, over the table, and so on. So this was a huge fight we gave. And I cannot even say this publicly. I say this here with you, and I hope this is a closed circuit. We cannot even say this publicly. But we did it. And this is an example of our responsibility as technical bodies and our possibilities. But we have to assume them. And there are not many doing this. So we have to put pressure on the techno-scientific communities to assume their responsibility and to do their job. Really, the time of innocence is over. This must be no praise anymore for tech heroes. Finish. Assume your responsibility. All these tech heroes you see, they must be really not treated as heroes anymore. They must be treated as a problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm afraid that we have to come to an end now, which means I can't even ask my final round of questions to you because we are getting cut here. But thank you very much, and I really appreciate also your impulsive talk to the tech people here. Actually, we are a tech institute. We are at the HPI, which is one of the tech institutes in Germany. And last sentence from my side, we had Sarah Spiekermann visiting here and talking especially to the tech people, to the tech students and professors 2 or 3 months ago. And I was really a little bit shocked how few students were attending that it's not playing a big role in the curriculum yet. It's still very techy, and I think there's a big need now, especially also in universities, to make people aware there is a need for value-based system design, and there is a big need also for collaboration. And I'm pointing also back to one of the sessions we had before, network of networks. That is something which unites us since several years now. And that is necessary, you know, build the networks with those people who are driving that kind of change and value-based change. So thank you very much. Thanks to our
Thank you.
panel, Melin, Konstantinos, and Monika.
Thank you, everyone.
And I hand back over to Christian.
Yes, thank you again to all the speakers. And I must say I am touched also. This is really, there's a lot going on that needs to be processed. And believe I'm not the only one. So thanks for these candid statements that you all made. I very much appreciate it. We have about 4 minutes left for everyone to find their next spot to sit or to look at the screen on the main stage and in the lecture hall. We will resume with the next sessions at 3 p.m.